There's a lot of debate in New Mexico about how we should address our energy needs in the future. This week's Line Opinion panelists are ready to share their thoughts and react to recent energy issues that made it into the headlines of local and national media. I'm joined at the table by journalist Laura Paskus, who regularly covers environmental issues here in New Mexico, Mackenzie Green Powell, a UNM graduate student in the Department of Landscape Architecture, our good friend Laura Sanchez-Rivey. She's an attorney and former CEO of the New Mexico Green Chamber of Commerce, and of course, our regular line panelist here on New Mexico in Focus. And Carolyn Parr, she's owner of Mind Over Matter Markets, a Santa Fe-based marketing firm that focuses on green businesses and the green economy. Thank you all for being here for the special Earth Day edition. Now, there's a lot of attention right now on the San Juan Generating Station in northwestern New Mexico. Public Service Company of New Mexico, or PNM as we know it, wants to shut down 2 units at the coal-fired power plant. The PNM plan needs approval from the State Public Regulation Commission, but a hearing officer recommended last week that the PRC reject the plan. Opponents to the PNM plan say it relies too much on coal and should include more alternative sources of energy to replace the units that would be shut down. Now, Laura Sanchez-Rivey, what does this debate signal to you about the current energy conversation here in New Mexico? Because this really is a focal point of a lot of things: policy, environment, all the things that we wrestle with on the environmental issues that are happening right here at PNM.
Well, this is a huge outcome, I think, a huge change from what PNM was expecting to get out of this case.
Right.
The fact that it was, and I should clarify, it wasn't rejected in total. It was essentially a settlement agreement that included the Attorney General and the large industrial consumers in the state, as well as PNM, for this proposal that included shutting down 2 coal-fired units in San Juan Generating Station. The thing about it is that there are 4 units total. 2 of them would be shut down. That's a good thing overall. We want less coal, right? But the outcome, what the replacement power they were going to use was 132 megawatts of coal from another unit. So essentially, they're getting rid of coal and replacing it with coal from another unit. And I think the problematic part of that is that other companies are also co-owners. You know, other Arizona utilities and other parties are co-owners of that. They're actually giving up their coal, and PNM was proposing to pick up some of that coal to replace the power. So it was, I think, a huge step forward in terms of trying to replace coal with renewable energy, that the hearing officer said, no, we're going to reject that 132 megawatts. And then in addition, they also, they basically changed or rejected part of what the financing included, or the projected amounts of nuclear had been proposed. So basically PNM proposed nuclear from Palo Verde Nuclear Generating Station in Arizona, and they basically estimated it to be too high, and that would be something that ratepayers would have to pay for. So the hearing officer said, no, we need to bring that cost down because it's actually a lot less than what you're estimating, and that turns around and basically means less bills, lower bills for consumers.
And that's the bottom line here in a lot of ways for folks sitting at home. What does it mean at my pocketbook? Laura Paskus, good to see you again. Always great when you're here to talk about these issues. In your reporting, extensive reporting on this issue and others, it's no joke to say that it's under a cloud, the Four Corners area. NASA has determined there's a big methane cloud that's bigger than any other place in the United States right now. How is it? I've always been curious, how is that affecting the debate in the Four Corners area? Is that something that's taken very seriously? Is it a call to arms? What's your sense of that?
I think there's a big meeting that's going to be happening this week where scientists are going to be coming and talking with the public about where this methane is actually coming from and hopefully what to do about it. But I think you're right. The Four Corners, we've got mining, we've got coal-fired power plants, we've got oil and gas drilling.
Sure. It's really ground zero for us here in the state, isn't there? We're going to come back to some other things that have been going on in the Four Corners as well. Mackenzie, thank you for being here as well. Laura Sanchez-Rivey touched on nuclear energy in Palo Verde. Where does that sit? Because if you think back a few years, it was a big debate. Folks got really vexed about nuclear energy as an alternative. It was the answer for a lot of folks. For New Mexico, where does that stand now?
Well, I think it's interesting because, Palo Verde is one of the biggest nuclear generating stations in the United States.
Right.
And coming out of the Fukushima Daiichi disaster, a lot of awareness was generated around the dangers of nuclear power, and people were very kind of anti-nuclear power, and especially in Germany, the country abandoned it. But for New Mexico, we have this debate about renewable energy. How are we going to switch to a low carbon economy, especially moving away from coal?
That's right.
And you now have a lot of people pushing nuclear power as the low carbon replacement for coal. So I think that, for New Mexico, we have to ask ourselves, as a source of uranium and facing new uranium mining, which will also possibly impact groundwater. We have a terrible history with health impacts and environmental impacts from uranium mining throughout the state. that, do we want to go down that path of replacing coal with a different source of energy, which is low carbon, but has other associated impacts?
That's right.
I think it's a big question.
It's an interesting question, and Carolyn, the idea that, we have this one giant generating station up there, but there's been other alternative energies are certainly coming to the surface, but not to the level we can replace that kind of energy. What does that do to the public's mind? Folks in Jersey want to have alternative energies. All the polling shows we have to have it. We want to have it here in New Mexico. What's the big stumbling block, though, to replace coal power with something else?
Stumbling block has often been policy, right? Not the people.
Right.
But not the people. The people often push it, but policy. And sometimes business can stand in the way, but sometimes business could actually create the change, and that's what I look for. I know that this particular plan by PNM, according to the PNM, will reduce their coal by 30%, right? So it's not more coal, but I think the problem is that we want more renewable energy, right? And it's how fast we get there, right? I think everybody wants clean energy on this planet. We're all breathing the same air. We're all drinking the same water, but it's when times when we're dealing with business, it's a slower road than what we want for in the environmental community.
Sure. Laura Sanchez-Rivet, another angle on energy and policy has to do with how Senate Bill 391. I'll just go right there. That the governor vetoed, which would have in fact. Why don't you explain it actually and what happened there, and we'll get into the.
Well, there's a solar tax credit that we have here in New Mexico. Essentially, if you're a homeowner and you purchase a solar system, a photovoltaic system, PV, for your rooftop, you can get a solar credit, a credit on your taxes, that is. Being tax day just a few days ago, huge impact for a lot of people who have that system. But it requires you to actually purchase, up front, a system that is, for many people, homeowners and otherwise, not affordable.
That's right.
I mean, it just is a lot of expense up front.
Right.
This particular bill would have expanded that solar credit to include systems that are leased. So essentially, you would lease the equipment from a company like Solar City, for example, who's coming to New Mexico, is starting operations and bringing a lot of jobs with them. Basically, you could lease that entire system, pay it back over time and so forth, like a normal lease, and you could still take the credit, the tax credit off of your income taxes. So it's a huge potential for increasing that market to people who otherwise would not have the capital to invest up front.
Now, what's the other side of it? What was behind the veto? Does that all make sense? To anybody sitting at home that's thinking about this, it's either money out of your pocket, and only a few of us can do that, a stout 5 figures, or literally leasing and renting. What's the issue?
I would need to speculate. I wasn't there at the time, of course, and don't have necessarily a direct line to the governor, but I would say that it was victim to politics. It was actually pocket vetoed. So that means that it didn't come with a veto message. It just wasn't acted upon by the deadline.
Right.
So that means that it basically got vetoed. But essentially, the insider baseball is that the governor hasn't traditionally supported this industry as much as other industries. This was one that certainly there was a lot of different parties that supported it. I think it came down to picking which programs the governor really feels are like the film credit. There was an expansion for that, and this just was not one that met that. I think traditionally, having worked at Tax and Rev in the past, I can say that much. There is. I think Tax and Rev looks at every tax credit with a particular, fine-tooth comb on whether it's something that they feel, based on their projections, will actually spur economic development. And this is one that I suspect didn't meet that threshold that they were looking for. I don't think it's going to go away, and I think it's going to continue to be pushed for during the interim committees and then certainly next session.
Laura Pascasino, interesting. I mean, folks want to do this. They want to be able to financially make this work. And as an economic driver, it seems to me, if you have this system in place, you have these all ancillary businesses that suddenly pop up to support it. Financing agencies, people leasing equipment, all that kind of a thing. Your sense of this and where this either puts us down the road or not, this veto of this bill?
Yeah, I reached out to the governor's office yesterday because I was curious. What it seemed like a no-brainer to me that this would be something that she would sign, and I heard no response back. So I can't actually explain why the governor's office would not sign it. Would Paco pocket veto it.
Sure.
But I think it kind of reminds me to what we were talking about with the San Juan, is that environmental issues, like we think of renewable energy or we think of this coal replacement plan as environmental issues, but they're just not anymore. These are economic issues. The reason the cities are pulling out of this or not supporting this agreement is it doesn't make economic sense to be supporting coal anymore. And I think it does make economic sense to be looking at, supporting more renewable energy
Sure.
and companies.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, we have till 2016. We have until next session, right? We have 18 more months for this to happen, and I have to agree with you, Laura. Also, what was extended was the sustainable building tax credit. So it's like, which one are we going to do right now, and which ones that we have to let go for now? And so it was not a good thing. But what I did, Senator Peter Wirth, I had an opportunity to do the recap of what happened, and he said that no bad bills, no bad environmental bills got pushed through, but it was the hardest session he had ever been through. So I still feel positive that this is going to happen, and we certainly have a robust community that can help it. But I think it just went, it was like, which one's going first?
Right.
Interesting.
Well, and
Go
the
ahead,
other
please.
thing I just wanted to mention quickly to a point that Laura mentioned, it used to be years ago when you worked on environmental issues, you were an environmentalist, and you basically were talking about, you were using land and water and critter protection type arguments. There are values-based arguments. I think today's effective advocates use dollars and cents as the argument, and it's really important to get to the bottom line and make the economic argument in order to be effective, especially in a state like New Mexico.
That makes sense. Up next, COAFD Secretary Monique Jacobson sits down with us to talk about how she thinks the department can improve services for vulnerable children and families.